Perikutas Mishnah Daled, and we move on with the Mizron. Okay, remember the Mizron is a cord, it's a beged wound round the legs of the bed, attached to the bed, and there's a chibra to the bed. But we know there's a machlokes between Rameh and Rabbi Yossi in the previous Mishnah, which we're now going to deal with in detail in this Mishnah. Nisa hazov al hamitov al hamizron. That means the azov lies on the mitah while the mizron is wrapped round it. That's all that expression means. So of course the mitah is a classic roy lemedres, roy lemishkav moishav. The mitah becomes an avatuma. That's simple. The question is, what happens to the mizron? The mizron is actually not roy lemishkav moishav. It's a cord, it's a gartel, and therefore, under normal rules, the mizron is not able to become the av hatuma of medris. But because this is mechuba to the bed, which itself has become an av hatuma of medris, Remeah holds that the mizron is a chibur to the bed for all purposes, for tumas meis, the regular contact tuma, and for tumas medris as well. And that the Mishnah calls metame shnaim upoisel echad divrei Rabbi Meir. Metame shnaim upoisel echad is just a euphemism. It's actually just a way of saying an av hatuma, because an av hatuma is able to make a rishon. The rishon is able to make a sheni, and in the case of truma, the sheni is then able to make a shlishi, and that truma becomes posel. So therefore, an av hatuma is able to be metame shnaim, i.e., the rishon and the sheni, upoisel echad, the shlishi. So just assume that expression means av hatuma. So what does Remeah say? Remeah says, I know the mizron is not royal in mishkav moishav, and under that rule shouldn't be able to become an avatoma. However, because of the rules of chibur, Remeah holds that if you mechaber two kelim, the second keli adopts all the dinim of the first one, even things like medris, which in itself the mizron isn't able to be. However, under the chibur rules, Remeah holds the mizron becomes an avatuma exactly the same as the mitah. In fact, the whole length of the mizron, without making any differentiation in what's needed and what's not needed. That's Remeah's view. Now, Rabbi Yossi says no. We learned in the previous Mishnah, Rabbi Yossi says, because the mizron is not ro'i lemedris, therefore, it's only that, and I want the mizron to become a yad to the bed, then it's only that part of the mizron which is needed for the bed under the normal rules of yad, that you can only be a yad up to as much as is needed. Therefore, Rabbi Yossi holds it's the first 10 tfachim which becomes like the bed and becomes an avatuma with the bed. But anything else, anything more than 10 tfachim, does not become an avatuma and just becomes a rishon. The tuma will explain. Says the words in the Mishnah. If the same case, if the zov lies on the bed when the mizron is wrapped around it, the first 10 tfachim, that is actually absolutely a yad of the bed, and therefore the bed becomes an avatuma. So do those 10 tfachim become an avatuma. However, me'asora lechutz, 10 tfachim outwards, what's more than 10 tfachim, cannot become an avatuma. It's not a chibur to the bed. It's not a yad to the bed. Therefore, matame echod upoised echod, which means that expression means it's just a rishon. It can have the power to make a sheni, and in the case of truma, to make the shlishi posel. Therefore, the word for rishon is matame echod upoised echod. But let's look at this. If the first 10 tfachim become a medras with the bed, because you hold that the first 10 tfachim belong to the bed, and more than 10 tfachim, the bit outside, doesn't belong to the bed, and is not able to become an avatuma, then under what rule does it become a rishon atuma? What has it touched? The answer is that the mizron, the outside 10 tfachim, and the first 10 tfachim are actually all one long kli. That one long kli has actually touched the bed. So the whole length of the mizron, in some way, has become a rishon atuma. The first 10 tfachim become a chubba to the bed and pick up the avatuma with the bed. But the whole mizron has touched the bed, and the whole mizron is roy to be mekabel atumas maga of touching the bed. Therefore the whole mizron becomes a rishon l'tumah. And hu adin according to Rameya, when we said, when Rameya holds that the whole length of the mizron picks up the tumah of the bed, i.e. becomes an avatuma with a bed, true. But then if you were to remove the mizron from the bed after the mizron has become an avatuma with a bed, says the Baratanur and the Rishonim, the mizron then drops from being an avatuma to a rishonatumah. That's because once you take the mizron off the bed, it's now not mechuba to the bed. There is no way this mizron can continue to be a medras and avatuma if it is not roy the mishkav moshav and not mechuba to a mishkav moshav. So it cannot be an avatuma anymore. But when it was attached to the bed, it was simultaneous with being mechuba to an avatuma. It also touched the bed, so it picked up a rishonatumah at that moment as well. And when you take the mizron off the bed, the old rishonatumah continues, although it had been suppressed because it was unnecessary when you had the chibur to the avatuma. But when you take it off, it then reverts back to the old rishonatumah. It always had been as well. A bit difficult that. Now the last bit of the Mishnah, which is a bit everybody agrees to. Nisa ala mizron. Instead of the zov lying on the bed, the zov now puts his weight on the mizron itself. Now here you would say, one second, maybe the same achlokas applies. According to Rameya, wherever the zov sits, it's metame the bed because it's all a chibur. No. Here, even Rabbi Meir's moida, that the zov can only sit on the first 10 tfachim to make the bed a medras, because medras applies when you sit on something which is ro'oi lemishkav v'moshav. The first 10 tfachim, even Rabbi Meir's moida, it's only that first 10 tfachim which is ro'oi lemishkav v'moshav because it belongs to the bed. Says the Mishnah, if the zov sits on the inner, the first 10 tfachim, that is part of the bed, part of the function of lying, of shchiva of the bed. Therefore, the zov has sat on a part of the mizron which is roy the mishkav v'moshav, and therefore the mizron can pick up the tumas medras because it's now mechuba to the bed, which is really roy the mishkav v'moshav. So because when the mizron is mechuba to the bed, those first 10 tfachim are called roy le mishkav v'moshav because they're mechuba to the bed. But b'asara l'chutz toir, any part of the mizron which is outside the 10 tfachim is b'mitzias not roy le mishkav v'moshav. It has no function of shchiva, and therefore the zov has sat on a kli which is not roy le mishkav v'moshav. Therefore, mishkav v'moshav or tumas medras doesn't even start, and therefore neither the mizron nor the bed become tomei medras. I hope you all got that. Difficult but beautiful Mishnah. And Mr. Shah, we carry on with Mishnah Hey.